Let's take a look at this week's internet weather. So this is our top 10 most pro ports. This is how we measure the volume of scanning on the internet. And so this week, compared to last week, there's not much movement. So I randomly selected this port 81 TCP, to go through it a little bit more and understand what's behind that. Port 81 TCP is an alternate web port, and I think several years ago there were many vulnerabilities on IoT type devices, DVRs, and SOHO type routers that were impacting this port. So let's see what's going on today. Here you have the blue line that represents scanning activity on port 81, and right behind it you see the red line, and that represents all activity on port 81 that we see. As you can see, they look very similar to each other. That is, a lot of the activity on port 81 is related to scanning. Let's analyze what's going on. So I looked at our honeypot data, and I was trying to understand, like, when people connect to port 81, what are they doing? What kind of packets are they sending? What are they trying to do? And I saw a bunch of different things, but there were two things that jumped out of me the most. The first was related to the IoT malware I mentioned. It's pretty old. There were even blogs about it in 2017, but even before that. So a lot of scanning for this login.cgi.
So they're still scanning for it?
Yes, exactly. Okay. People are always scanning for this.
Okay.
But another thing that I saw, and it was just kind of onesie twosie type situation on port 81, was related to this URL. Right here. Here it is on VirusTotal. 18 vendors out of 70 are detecting it as malicious. Okay. So this one was using actually the Apache struts exploit, and this is kind of like what it looks like that what it was doing. And when it downloads the malware, that malware has 54 out of 70 detections on VirusTotal. And even you could see the comments that people post up there when they upload the malware. You could see this is very similar to what our honeypot is seeing. So there's lots of people out there on the internet seeing similar activity. But let's go in and let's check out the malware sample. So both this malware sample is actually packed, UPX packed. But once you get past that layer, one of the things I like to do the most, especially when I just have a little bit of time, is strings. Strings is one of the most telling things you can do with malware, just to see what it looks like. And when you do that with this sample, you could see there's a URL to an additional sample, like maybe a second stage. And then there's this reference to Black Moon, which immediately, I take that phrase, I search it in Google and see, does anybody else know about this? And I found there's quite a few articles from 2015, which is like 4 years ago, about like spamming and Trojan. That's a banking Trojan. It's a banking Trojan that's targeting, I think, South Korean kind of victims, which is interesting. Actually, Proofpoint, the company, did an analysis on Black Moon Trojan, banking Trojan. And when I saw this part of strings, I understood why. If you look here, these are strings related to sending email.
Some email, right.
So perhaps this has like a spamming component as well. So when you become infected with it, you might start sending spam as well and try getting people click on it, which makes sense for why Proofpoint would have seen it in a campaign and try to do a blog about it. All right, let's kind of download the second stage and see what that's about.
You got that second file. Yes. Okay, cool.
So let's go look at that and see what that does. And right away I see something interesting. I always pick out things like this. There's actually a misspelling. I don't know why bad guys are in a hurry. They always want to like do things quicker. I guess they're so optimized, but here they spelled the word group wrong, and it's Garup. And those are the types of things that I think a lot of like security researchers kind of zoom in on. And here you go, similar domain, different port. There's configuration files that could get downloaded. And the other thing I noticed is that it's got more EXEs inside the EXE. So this second stage is a dropper for more things. So I can't stop there. I gotta go and I gotta look deeper. So what do we have? So when you look at it a little bit more, you could see there's a whole section inside of this EXE that's related to just vulnerabilities. So this right here, this part, that's the vulnerability that has to do with Apache struts. But then this one is the Think PHP vulnerability. And this is some sort of a Hydra vulnerability I'm not familiar with. Other strings here refer to double pulsar, which is an exploit that was used for distributing WannaCry. On port 445, there's reference to Mimikatz. Actually, as I looked at it more and more, there were all kinds of subcomponents within the second stage malware that can do many more things. It's like a mishmash of like some of the worst malware and techniques that we've seen over the past few years. And really, one comment, I really liked it. That's why I put it out here. This IP address that's doing it is from China. So this guy is saying that a Chinese threat actor is attempting to drop Mimikatz, coin mining by exploiting Apache struts. The only thing that is not listed here is it's actually trying to do other things as well. We were able to catch it because it was scanning and trying to exploit port 81 TCP. But it's clear that the adversaries behind it are trying to do much, much more. So that was a little bit of excitement. Let's get into more excitement with the most sources probing. So most sources probing is our measure of like botnet activity. If there's a lot of devices scanning on a particular port. And again, everything here is something that we've seen before, something that we've talked about. So I wanted to zoom in on port 5431 because I guess we haven't talked about it for a while. Now this port we actually have talked about quite a bit. I've talked about it, John, Matt, we've all described it. And so in this particular situation, what I see is this scanning activity kind of comes and goes. So this is 90 days, but then sometimes it's a little wider. You could see here probably in the last 30 days, the scanning has been sustained over a period of time and instead of just all of the devices all of a sudden doing it. So there's some kind of a change. So I wanted to go and see like who is doing the scanning, what are these devices. Now I like to throw them up on the geographic map because it really helps me understand what's going on. You could see there's like a lot of hotspots in here. You don't see China scanning, you don't really see Russia scanning that much, and not much in Africa either. But there's the specific like India, and you got countries here like Brazil,
Colombia.
Yes, exactly. And some places in the US as well that are hotspots. Usually when I see that, it's letting me know that maybe there's a specific country or an ISP that's using a specific type of a device.
That's interesting,
And maybe they're deploying that to a lot of their customers, and their customers are maybe becoming infected or something like that. I decided to go and check out what are these devices. And basically what I found is some really old, I feel like today's episode is all about throwing things back to like back in the day. So this one is probably from like 2013, Sans diary, and this is actually exactly what's happening. This is exactly what we're observing. And also, there's a CVE or an exploit as well. So I did more device profiling. If you connect to the device, you'll see that it'll send you this string called BRCM400, which is kind of letting you know it's vulnerable. And there was this person, unfortunately I don't have the name here, but in 2013 wrote an exploit to show how one of these types of devices could be vulnerable. Unfortunately, the difference between this white paper and what we're seeing right now is somebody bad is taking control of all of these thousands of devices that are in these geographically dispersed hotspots. Whereas this person was trying to raise awareness to the issue. But here's approximately how it works, and it looks like that's what it is.
We now have a 7-year-old device, and no way to tell these people to maybe get a new device, or the fact that they are probably part of this botnet that just keeps on recycling itself.
So I feel like that's a normal problem with devices like this. Some consumers, when they're buying a device, rightfully so, they're like, wait, well, I just bought it. This is the thing. Do I need any more? So they're probably going to be keeping some of these things around for a while, especially if they meet the purpose. Not everybody is going to be changing their device every year. So that's kind of the internet weather for this week. A lot of interesting findings.
Thank you, Stan.
Of course.